On this video, we're going to show you how to reuse some of your old pipe fittings in your PEX tubing. I've got a couple of these fittings down here below. This is a brass elbow for some PEX piping. This is 3/4 inch PEX tubing connected to this elbow. As you can see in this image here, you've got this typically on each of these PEX fittings, you're going to have crimp rings that go around the fitting all the way around to connect the piping to the fitting itself. This video is going to show you how we remove these crimp rings, but also how do we get the pipe away from the fitting itself if it's been on there, especially for a long time, and how do we do it safely without damaging the part itself. Because as we try to get these apart away from each other, these fittings themselves have threads that are used when we crimp on the rings themselves, so that to make sure there's no leaks. So something that I always do when I'm removing these crimp rings, you can get a crimp ring remover. You can buy that tool over at your hardware store, or you can do what I did. I usually just take out my Dremel, attach one of these discs onto the end of it, these grinding discs. Just come through here real carefully and cut into the ring until I'm all the way through. And when you finally do start to get through the ring, it's usually going to pop off the rest of the ring since it's under a good amount of pressure due to the crimping process that's done. But once you cut into it, go ahead and make sure you stop and make sure that it's cut all the way through the ring itself. You may cut into the pipe a little bit itself, and that's typically not going to be a problem. But if you do cut into the pipe, it's you don't want to you want to make sure you don't cut too deeply into the pipe itself, because if you do, like I said, you're gonna damage these threads, and then you're gonna have leaks. So that means this fitting is going to be useless for reuse in the future. So the question then comes is, how do I remove this pipe from this fitting? In this case, this elbow, without damaging the fitting below it. I can't keep cutting with my Dremel tool, otherwise it's going to be a problem. And like I said, these are really difficult to get off from each other a lot of times when they're connected together for so long. So what I like to do is something I did is I bought this soldering iron a while ago. This one's 20 bucks. It's a Mutter. Got it off of Amazon, pretty cheap. But I attached to what's this flat blade onto the end of it. And the flat blade is really helpful, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this flat blade to connect into this cut into the pipe itself, so that I can then easily remove the pipe from the fitting itself. So watch. I'm just going to take this and just slowly just cut into it. In fact, before I do this, I'm going to actually make sure I don't have my other hand close, where I'm going to slip and then cut, singe my hand, because that's obviously something I would be sure to do with Murphy's Law. So make sure I'm just coming in here. I'm just going to put the blade down. You make sure as you're doing this, and also when you were grinding earlier, you make sure you wear your glasses so you don't get anything in your eyes. Wear your glasses here. You don't want smoke in your eyes, and you also want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. I'm just going to make some, just almost like I'm cutting with a surgeon's knife. I'm just going to be cutting into it. As you can see, there's some plastic peeling away as I'm doing this, so I got to be really careful. And try not to breathe in these fumes. Well ventilated area, use a fan. And it's just gonna just sit here and cut through this, melt through this PEX tubing, and just kind of keep at it until you get all the way in. It's gonna take a little bit of time sometimes. You just kind of keep going here. Sure enough, as you get through it a ways, there we go, and make a good clean cut. Once you're cut through that all the way, it should be pretty easy to just kind of pry it off. There we go, it's coming off. See how it splits right there? And it comes off really nice and easy. So you make the cut with the soldering iron, it loosens up, the way that the pipe has been kind of crimped on there for so long, and it should be able to come off with general ease. So anyway, just get yourself a good soldering iron. Make sure you got the right tools and protective equipment as you do this, and it should be good. And you can reuse these fittings in the future. You always, once you remove it, inspect the fitting, make sure it's still good, make sure there's no problems with it, and reuse it in your future plumbing projects. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.